relied upon time and again. We all congratulate Attorney Ivan Uy for his recent appointment. Would that the confirmation tomorrow go as successfully? Okay, so with that, there is no need for a quorum because our previous meeting ended up in a suspension. I would like to merely call upon our committee secretary to recognize the guests here present. And as you all know, this is not an investigation as such, but simply a general assessment of the 2022 national and local elections. We are all aware that the job of the legislature is not to charge or file charges, but simply to legislate. So therefore, our effort today is in aid of legislation, which are the areas where we can clearly improve, despite the fact that this was lauded as the quickest election, the fastest counting and canvass. The truth is there are many things that even the COMELEC itself has mentioned need fixing, need improvement, need upgrading. So with that, we recognize through our committee secretary all the resource persons who have kindly come today.
Good morning. The Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation would like to acknowledge the presence of its distinguished guests, namely, from Commission on Elections, Chairman Saidamen Pangarungan, Commissioner Ray E. Bulay, Commissioner George Erwin M. Garcia, Commissioner Amy Torrefranca Neri, Director Bartolome J. Sino Cruz Jr., Director Teopisto E. L. Nash Jr., Director Helen G. Aguila Flores, Director Jeannie V. Flororita, Director Maria Norina S. Tangaro Casingal, Director Margaret C. Ching, Director Julio Tadeus P. Hernan, Director Sonia Bea V. Lozada, from CICC, Executive Director Cesar O. Mancao II, Attorney Christopher Tew, from Department of Information and Communications Technology, Undersecretary Maria Victoria C. Castro, Director Antonio Edward E. Padre, from National Telecommunications Commission, Deputy Commissioner Edgardo Cabarrios, from Technical Evaluation Committee, Director Antonio E. Padre and Director Edon Bolo, from Democracy Watch is still not present po. Okay. From Globe Telecom, Attorney Ariel Tubayan. There, okay. Our IT experts, Attorney Hubert Guevara, and our incoming Deputy Secretary, Attorney Ivan John Uy. From NAMFREL, Mr. Angel S. Avelilla Jr. From PLDT, Attorney Kevin Pangan. From SMART, Attorney Roy Ibay. Mr. Anthony Fernandez. From Smartmatic Philippines, Attorney Christian Robert Lim. Meron pa pong hindi natawag. That will be all. From Ideas, Attorney Donatello Justiniani. Thank you. That will be all. And from PPCRV, Dr. Irene Serrano. Thank you. That will be all, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I hope we recognized anyone. If there's anyone who's been forgotten or comes in late, please let us know. Thank you very much. There are a number of questions that have arisen both in the media and as raised by the commissioners themselves. I think it was Commissioner Garcia who reported that upwards of 1,800 VCMs needed fixing in some minor or major way. Some were jammed, rejected ballots, had problems with scanners, were not printing, or had malfunctioning printers. May we know if there is further information about the same?
With the kind permission of the Honorable
Yes,
Chairperson.
thank you. Commissioner Garcia, you're recognized.
Yes, Madam Chair, after the verification with our Operations Center, our CEMAC, we found out that what we have actually, we have 1,295 vote counting machines which were replaced. This is domestic, and for our overseas, there were 15 vote counting machines replaced, and therefore, all in all, we came up with 1,310 vote counting machines replaced on election day. Likewise, as far as the SD cards, Madam Chair is concerned, we have 611 here in the country, and we have 7 SD cards replaced in overseas voting. Therefore, we have 618 all in all replaced SD cards. So
So, konti lang. Actually, yung SD card, konti lang.
that's
Kung
right,
tutuusin.
Madam Chair, yes.
Oo.
And so, more or less po, this was actually likewise the basis of the COMELEC giving additional honorarium for our electoral boards, support staff, and technicians in each and every precinct. So, across the board po yung binigay namin sa kanila. Ito lang po yung nagkaproblema. Yung iba po, Madam Chair, na binabanggit namin problema dati, medyo uminit po yung machine because talaga pong sobrang dami. We have 83.07% of voters turnout on election day. So medyo uminit po yung machine, kinakailangan gumamit kami ng mga electric fans at na-solve naman po. Yung iba
What
naman
was the
po,
turnout? Sorry, I didn't catch the number.
83.07%, Madam Chair, the highest in the history of Philippine election.
I see.
That's for local.
Yes.
Yes, for overseas, we have 39%, representing about 661,000 of the 1,697,000 voters registered in overseas voting.
Yes. Thank you. We'll appreciate, the committee would appreciate the submission of those data upon completion, no? So, is this number, the 1,310 VCMs that broke down, is this a number much larger than the previous elections, like 2016, for example, or the previous elections before that? There was a sense in the provinces, at least where I come from, where my mother comes from, na mas maraming nasira ngayon. Kung tutuusin, 2009 pa naman yan mga dineliver. So, nasa 13 years old na itong mga machine kahit i-refurbish pa ng todo. Is it significantly greater than the previous elections?
With your permission, Madam Chair.
Yes, yes, Commissioner Bulay, for sure.
What I have here are 2019 figures.
2019, that's correct.
Elections. Defective SD cards recorded at 2,256. And defective BCMs, 1,400. Definitely, the 2022 election figures are lower than the 2019.
I see. How many were the total SD cards once again? That you said it's only 618 na SD cards na nasira.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Whereas
611.
Yeah, whereas Commissioner Bulay is saying that mas malala noong 2019 kasi umabot ng 2,252. Tama po ba yun?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so what is the recommendation pushing forward? I'm certain that you're all aware that the budget has been more or less prepared for 2023. And moving forward, we know that we will still have another election this year. There's an SK barangay election in December 5. And although that's manual, it's a harbinger of things to come. So I am wondering if you have already computed forward exactly what we should do with the VCMs. We've gone through the repairs and so on. And perhaps partial or complete replacement of these VCMs is in order. By the way, just to put on the record, the election watchdog Contra Daya stated that the malfunctioning VCMs doubled from past elections. They seem to have differing data. Yes. Anyone has any suggestions so that, well, as you know, we can amend and pass new laws here in the Senate and in Congress. And on the other hand, we have the major role of trying to put together a budget in these difficult times. So sana, maisingit na natin kahit paano, kahit pa unti-unti, yung budget na kinakailangan para masaayos itong mga VCM at iba pang problema natin. Kasi napakamahal kasi mag-overhaul ng lahat, sabay-sabay eh. Yes, please.
Yes.
Anybody? Yes, Chairman, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dito po sa 2022 budget, the COMELEC requested budget of 12 billion. And Congress approved only 8 billion. Kaya po napilitan ng COMELEC to refurbish the voting counting machines. And then we have these malfunctions in the BCMs. So definitely we will recommend to lease a new voting counting machines. Kasi itong mga BCMs, it's 13 years old as you observe. Kailangan talagang gumamit tayo ng bago na mga BCMs for the 2025 elections.
Lahat sila, 2010 ang unang gamit nila, all of
Yes.
them. Pero ang pagkaalam ko, yung iba mas bulok kaysa sa, yung iba naman, bago-bago pa. Tama ba yun? Yes, Commissioner Garcia.
With the kind permission of our chairman, Madam Chair,
Hindi, kasi necessarily we will have to face the replacement of the same. I'm certain that given our rather dire straits economically, we will have to do it in phases. So siguro, i-address muna natin yung pinakaluma.
yes, Madam Chair, with your kind permission, we actually, yung pong lumang-luma, 97,000 po lahat-lahat yun. 97,000. And we lease about 11,100 additional new machines. And so ako po personally would recommend to the NBank, in case we'll still be there, to retire the 97,000. It's no longer feasible at this point to use these machines in 2025. Masyado na pong matanda,
Pag
nakatatanda
sinabi
yung mga
mong
machine.
i-retire, i-replace ba yan? O i-lease, bibilhin ba yan? Paano yung sistema? Kasi matinding, mainit na usapin din yan eh. Kung i-lease na ulit, tapos hindi pala natin pag-aari, pero ang taas-taas ng presyo. 97,000 is a very large number, number one. And number two, what arrangement do you propose?
Madam Chair, based on the experience of the commission election, it's always leasing the machine that is the best option, not purchasing the machine. Why? Simply because we have to rent a warehouse, we have to store the machines, and at the same time, it's very difficult to maintain the machines. Nagbabago po kasi yung technology every now and then, months lang po.
Pero sa totoo lang, binayaran rin naman natin ng refurbishment eh.
Yes, Your Honor, but it's...
Hindi naman na libre yun eh. Kasi the argument for leasing always is that we can get newer models, that we will be updated and so on. But they never updated anything. It's still 2009. They still made us pay for refurbishing. So there was really no savings or improvement on that score.
We spent 660 million, Madam Chair, for purposes of refurbishment. That is actually a smaller amount compared to leasing again new machines. So it's the 660 million.
Any idea po, Chair or Commissioners, kung magkano yung leasing ng 97,000? Dami nun eh. May idea po kayo? Director Sino Cruz and the rest who have the institutional memory of COMELEC. Sige po. Di naman kayo ganun katanda. Ginigising ko lang kayo.
Thank you for that, ma'am. In the past elections, ma'am, the lease price is always about 70% of the purchase price. So 70% lagi.
So that would be,
lease price.
kaya nga, so what would that be in pesos?
Well, kung just for the sake of discussions, kung 100,000, 70% would be 70,000. Yeah. Per DCM.
So that would bring us to 70,000 times the 97,000. 6.7, right? Yeah, somewhere there. Okay, so 6.7 billion. I don't think we have that amount burning a hole in our pockets right now. But I think we could start, as you said, kahit face by face lang muna, di ba? Kasi napakabulok. Itong 11,000 na bago-bago, when were they procured or leased? Do you recall?
Ma'am, they were leased for the 2022 elections.
So they're recent. They were
Yeah,
20. How much
they're-
did it cost?
I'm sorry, I do not have the idea kung how much.
Yes, if you could give us lump so that we have some basis for comparing and so that the sponsors for the COMELEC budget will have ground to ask for greater sums. So the other question is, itong bagong batch, may issue sa ibang lugar na hindi daw interoperable? Iba bang klase? Alam niyo, di ba nagbabago yung software, nagbabago yung mekanarya pag bago-bago. And 13 years is a long, long time for technology. So, were they in fact interoperable, the new ones versus the old ones? Kasi may nagreklamong probinsya eh.
Yeah, they were in fact operable, Madam Chair. In fact, underwent po din sila ng stress test. And lahat naman po, okay, yung talaga pong na-report sa aming CEMAC, sa aming Operations Center, Madam Chair, ay yung mga machines na lumang-luma talaga. From reporting yung mismong umiinit, hindi pumapasok yung mga balota. Yung iba naman po, Madam Chair, ay yung mismong scanner. Nasira yung po pala. Every now and then, pag luma, nakakailanganin mong gumamit nung special wiper, at the same time, yung liquid na ginagamit po doon sa scanner. So all of these things happened dito po sa mga lumang machines sa 97,000. But with all due respect, wala po kaming natanggap na report para doon sa 11,000 ng mga new machines.
So yung mga bagong machine, walang reklamo. I don't know, our poll watchdogs, walang reklamo dun sa mga bago. Parang we couldn't tell the difference na eh. Alin ba yung bago, alin yung bago-bago, alin yung luma. Were they all deployed all over, the newer ones, or were they in chosen places?
Yung 1,100 po, Madam Chair, ng mga machines ay contingency machines namin. And so what happened
Your
actually,
contingency machines were the old ones or the new ones?
may mga new ones din po doon sa contingency. What we are going to do, Madam Chair, is we're going to provide the committee the breakdown of all these 106,174 machines and the 1,100 machines, and how we were able to distribute the breakdown as far as the old ones and the new ones are concerned.
Right. We are buying from the same, or we are leasing from the same supplier, is that correct, all the time? And who is that supplier?
The service provider of the commission, Your Honor, is the Smartmatic.
Also Smartmatic. So the issue of interoperability does not arise. In the event that we are able to budget for partial replacement and refurbishment of the rest from the same company, and it is no longer Smartmatic that is the service provider, will we have issues of interoperability? There always are, di ba? Pag nagpapalit ka ng provider, di natin masabi, di ba?
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, we
Because
have...
then we'll be confined to Smartmatic all the time, given that that they are the only ones who are able to provide and to refurbish the old ones.
The 97,000 were sold to us by the same company, and the 11,100 were likewise leased to the same company, Madam Chair. So in any event that we will be retiring the 97,000 and we will have 11,000, the 11,000 is now being leased from the same company. But as far as the 97,000
Hindi, kung
is
kukuha
concerned,
ka ng bago, mauobliga ka na naman Smartmatic. Yun lang sinasabi ko. Kung bibili ka na naman, ay hindi naman bibili, kundi mag-uupa ka ng bago, kinakailangan galing sa Smartmatic. Otherwise, hindi naman sila interoperable, ano?
that is a very serious and logical concern, Madam Chair. But then, everybody will still have to undergo the bidding process in accordance with the pre-qualification requirements set by the Commission.
Kasi yan ang laging problema, di ba? Ang nirereklamo, kinakailangan yung parehong makina, di lagi nilang Smartmatic. Kaya despite so many complaints, we seem to renew its contract time and time again. I think the other issue will be the changes in the warranty and penalty clauses of the maintenance contracts. We saw very clearly, and I think the chairman was quite firm about this, that COMELEC and the national government have very little recourse. It's either you terminate contract or withhold payment. Yun lang, di ba? Should we be more careful in the drafting of warranty and penalty clauses so that we have more options in the event of malfunction and so on? Any suggestions moving forward po?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Bulat, please.
Can I suggest that we ask Dedo Elnas to answer the first question?
Okay.
So there's clarity, and then to come to the next, if he's willing. He is here, our technical person. He more or less is familiar with what happened, Madam
Hoy,
Chair.
Director
Thank you.
Elnas. Suki ko yan. Musta na?
Good morning po,
Yes,
Your Honors.
Director, please. Is there anything you can think of so that we have better, more watertight, and more flexible warranty and penalty clauses within our contract, giving government and COMELEC for more options?
With the permission from the Honorable Chair.
Yes, please.
As far as the interoperability is concerned, Your Honor, mayroon na tayong experience dyan. That was 1998. Armed elections wherein there were two providers as far as the conduct of the elections is concerned, and ultimately we have that experience, the interoperability problem, because hindi nag-uusap itong dalawang provider natin.
Ayun nga yung sinasabi noon eh. Diba?
Yes, ma'am. And we were fortunate enough that when we bidded the additional machines for the 2022 national and local elections, same provider po ang nanalo. So there's not much concern as far as interoperability is concerned because parehong provider, parehong
Yes,
system,
Director,
etc.
but we're talking about moving forward. Ang problema nito, forever and ever na lang tayo nakapako sa Smartmatic.
Yes, Your Honor. In fairness to
Yes.
Smartmatic, Your Honor.
Hindi na tayo magbibidding yan. Sa kanila na yung kontrato.
Hindi po ganon, Your Honor. In fairness to Smartmatic, they went through the process of bidding po.
No, I
Whether-
understand that, but I'm just saying that practically speaking, given that other suppliers will not provide machines that are interoperable, we're stuck with whoever supplier we have at present.
Now, if in case the budget would permit us, Your Honor, to the point that we will be leasing new machines, then new technology and new provider can come and join or participate in the bidding, Your Honor.
Pero realistically, di ba, Director Elnas, pinag-usapan na natin, imposible mangyari ito in one fell swoop. Yung 6.7B na sinasabi, medyo mabigat yun, ano, lalo na sa panahong ito. So, necessarily, dahan-dahan yan, by batch yan, di ba? Practically speaking, naisip ko lang, ibig sabihin na every batch needs to be Smartmatic, otherwise it's not gonna work with the rest.
Hindi naman po, Your Honor, but there has to be some technical adjustments that must be conducted if in case may bagong provider na papasok together with itong mga lumang machines namin to work for the elections, Your Honor.
Yes, these are considerations that need to be kept in view moving forward. So with the warranty and penalty clauses, are you considering other action? I remember the chairman was rather concerned that the only thing he could do was really just withhold payment or cancel the contract, which was clearly not possible 3 months, 6 weeks before the election, ano? So parang nakatali ang kamay natin, wala tayong magawa eh. Are there other warranties and penalty clauses we can craft so that we are better protected all along the process?
Your Honor, I think it is within the ambit of the law department to, as far as the drafting of the contract and more so provisioning on the penalties and other concerns, Your Honor.
Yes, I will have to ask your help nga in COMELEC because I think there's a public outcry that the penalty structure should be in place and that in fact it should provide significantly and progressively steeper penalties depending on the malfunction, the number, the seriousness. Pag sumobrang lumobo na yung nasisira, edi syempre papagalitan mo ng todo. Eh, ang hirap naman na wini-withhold mo ng wini-withhold yung bayad, eh baka malintala pa yung timing ng eleksyon, ma-delayed naman yung schedule natin. So, alimbawa, I was just thinking, I mean, this is just, I need your suggestions, you're the expert on the ground. Director Elnas, for example, if less than 50 VCMs experience serious malfunctions, the penalty will be a certain sum multiplied by the number of the VCMs. But halimbawa, 50 to 100 VCMs. In reality, what happened is it's usually over 1,000. Dapat the penalty will be twice the preceding multiplied by the numbers of the VCMs. Parang ganon, di ba? Pag malalang malala at laganap talaga yung sira, obvious ba? Mas matindi rin yung parusa progressively. Tama ba yun?
Pwede naman ganon, ma'am. That will be incorporated in the contract, Your Honor. Bago ma-implement, ma-execute yung yung kontrata, Your Honor.
Okay, so these are serious considerations. I'm perfectly willing to bring the proposal of buying or leasing new VCMs, perhaps in tranches, as much as we can afford within the general appropriations. But at the same time, we have to keep in view that they need to be interoperable without, at the same time, shackling the COMELEC to the same service provider. And also being more nuanced in our warranty and penalty clauses so that we are allowed more elbow room in the event of malfunction. Can I get some help from the COMELEC? You don't have to do it this minute, but you know, it's just things we need to think about because this is really to improve our electoral process. Attorney Ivan Uy, I think you raised your hand.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just want to ask a question. COMELEC for this year's election actually purchased the software from Smartmatic. So with that purchase of the software, will it affect the interoperability in case COMELEC acquires other machines from other providers? Thank you po.
Yes, is there anyone in COMELEC who's willing to answer? Usually Commissioner Casquejo answers this sort of thing, but he's not here today. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward? Yes, Director Elnas. We were talking about the hardware and the VCM machines, but now the question has arisen that the software is also sold by Smartmatic and hence clearly operable with the machines. Paano nga kung nagbago yung software?
Your Honor, with the permission of the Honorable Chair and Commissioners, may I refer the matter to Director Ginny Florita, Your Honor, the technical, in charge of the technical aspect of the elections, Your Honor.
I think she was here. Parang nakita ko. Oh, ayan. Oo. Ayun. Director Florita, please. Yes, good morning.
Yes, based on the contract po, on the software. Based on the contract on the software po. The software as customized will be transferred to COMELEC. The ownership will be transferred to COMELEC and we can do modification in all of the the source codes of the AES from EMS, VCM, and CCS. So in that case po, in case we have two different systems, we can already integrate them into one.
Yes, Attorney Uy, is that responsive?
Well, actually, yeah, I understand that it has been purchased and it has been transferred, so you could modify the source code. But,
Yes.
well, normally the concern is the source codes are designed in such a way that it will really work ideally because it is designed for the hardware that comes with that software. So with a different type of hardware that comes in, I think software modifications has its limits, no? And there might be instances where the hardware is so different that any type of modification on the software will not make it. For instance, we're all using Microsoft Windows on PCs, and then you decide to buy Macs. So your software on the Windows, although there's Windows for Macs, but it actually will not be that ideal a situation. So I just want to make sure and also to raise that the possibility that the purchase of the software might just go to waste if a different supplier of the hardware comes in. Thank you,
Yes,
Madam
that's
Chair.
right. Well
Yes.
taken po. I mean, clearly, software will have to go with the hardware.
Yes.
And one has to work with the other in the event that we change it. Any
Yes.
further comments, Director Flororita?
Yes, Your Honor. When we say integration, we only have to adjust yung purchase software. Doon lang po sa sa output. So in case we have a different application, a different hardware, that will have a different software. So in order for the two systems to integrate, we will ask the next provider to produce output the same as the AES. So the integration will be possible.
I see. Yes, so there's a great deal to keep in mind, therefore, both with the hardware as well as the software, as well as giving COMELEC elbow room to sanction or to otherwise punish the service providers such that we get a more efficient procedure. Okay, so I will await your suggestions. I think COMELEC is the expert on hand, so maybe you can come up, maybe Director Elnas, the Law Department, patulong na lang, and Commissioner Garcia, if you come up with some of the data regarding turnout and the final tally on the breakdowns of the VCMs, because people awaited. Maraming nagtanong sa dami ng VCM na nasira, ba't ang bilis? Yeah, is there a simple explanation for the public?
Kasi
Si Director Elnas? Director Flororita? Sige.
With the permission, Madam Chair. Your Honor, unlike in 2019, yung repair hubs namin is nasa Santa Rosa. So, lahat ng BCMs na masira on the ground has to be transported to Santa Rosa for repair.
Yes, it was
This
much
time-
better this time.
Yeah.
Oo.
This time, we established repair hubs, regional repair hubs, 8 regional repair hubs para yung accessibility, yung speed and time for the repair and transportation mas madali.
Tama.
That's
oo.
one. Second, we coordinated with the AFP and PNP for speedy transport of defective or yung mga nasirang VCMs from the precincts up to the regional hubs for repair. And at the same time, habang nire-repair ito, binabiyahe, pinapasok namin yung contingency.
Yung?
Yung contingency in place within the
Okay, so
province.
tuloy-tuloy.
So may mga instances tayo na tuloy-tuloy yung paggamit.
Although may reklamo rin na kulang yung spare VCMs, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Talagang admitted yan na kukunti lang talaga ang BCMs namin.
Okay.
So, with that, ma'am, we were able to address, hindi man ganun ka bilis, but comparable doon sa 2019 national and local elections, mas mabilis tayo dito ngayon. Before, it took us 1 day or 48 hours para maibalik yung BCM
Oo, sa
para
Santa Rosa
magbabatch
kasi.
feed.
Oo.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Although
Thank you
may
po.
reklamo naman sila na wala raw mga stipend at allowance yung nakatambay dun sa regional and provincial areas.
Yung ma'am, yung regional repair hubs natin is through Smartmatic sila ang nagpo-provide ng teams to do the repairs po.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Elnas. Mupo ka na dyan. Balik ka ng balik eh. Okay lang, salamat ah. Oh, okay, I think the poll watching bodies will bear me out. There was great hesitancy when the VCM malfunctioned. There was great hesitancy on the part of the voters to leave their filled up ballots with the Electoral Board. Di ba ayaw nila isaalang-alang dun sa Electoral Board. And then, very often there was no waiver form. And even if there's a waiver form, hindi pa natagang kalooban nila na okay daw yon. Tama po ba yon? That's the complaint that we received in this committee, and that they had to execute a waiver of their right to be issued a voter's receipt. And in certain cases, they were not naman required to execute a waiver. In other cases, may nagsabi naman na pinipilit sila mag-waive na lang at iwanan na ng balota. Meron ba kayong narinig na gano'n? Tama ba yung dinig namin?
Excuse me. Meron po kaming narinig na gano'n, at pero hindi naman po ganun karami. Bagamat nangyari nga yun nung election day, but what is yung maganda dito na nangyari is talagang nagtiyaga, not only the electoral board members but also the watchers inside that precinct where those things happened. And doon naman sa mga voters na nagtiyaga pa rin na talagang ayaw nilang ibigay yung kanilang mga balota, those things happened. In fact, one of the children of our trustee in PPCRB also did, no, yung ayaw niya talaga. First time voter siya, and then inantay niya talaga kahit na inabot ng napakahabang oras, and until such time na dumating yung yung replacement BCM, and then the voting continues, even umabot nga talaga sila ng ng this oras na ng gabi. But ayaw din naman talaga ng COMELEC na mangyari yon. So those things can really happen, especially kung meron nga talaga tayong mga old BCMs na nagamit. Hindi ko rin alam kung yung pangyayari na yon ay old BCM yung nagamit, but as what Commissioner Garcia had mentioned, he would be happy to inform the body about specific PCMs that were used from those situations that happened. But isa rin na babanggit ko rin dito, during the last steering committee, Commissioner Casquejo mentioned that yung mga ganong mga pangyayari, bibigyan yata ng additional allowances yung mga electoral board members na nag-serve that serve beyond those those supposedly up to that time na kaya lang nila ibigay. So yung mga umabot talaga ng the following day, in fact meron pa ngang nangyari na umabot ng 2 days bibigyan yata sila ng ng allowance ng COMELEC for those electoral board members who serve under those circumstances. So yes, to tell it honestly, nangyari nga po talaga 'yon, but hindi naman po masyadong napakarami as compared to the successful turnout of the normal functionality of BCMs in many precincts nationwide.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we need to clarify from COMELEC, there was a great level of confusion about these waiver forms. Why did some electoral boards fail to require the voters to execute a waiver? There were complaints that a lot of electoral boards daw, hindi pinaliwanag sa mga botante kung anong gagawin. The electoral boards also failed to explain to the voters that leaving their ballots was merely an option and not an absolute requirement, because some voters complained that they were forced to do so. And then finally, there were also incidents where they had to leave the filled-in ballots, and there was no option to wait for the VCMs that were being replaced. There are a number of complaints and confusion regarding COMELEC policy with this regard. Yes, Commissioner Bulay?
Yes, ma'am, with the kind permission. The resolution of the COMELEC completely addresses this problem, this concern. It's Commission Resolution 10759. If I may quote
Yes,
a few.
we're familiar with the resolution, Commissioner Bulay. The voters were given the option, di ba? Option talaga siya, to leave their filled-up ballots with the electoral board, provided there's a waiver that they execute of their right to get a voter's receipt. I think that was fairly clear-cut.
Yes,
Kaya
yes.
lang, yung execution nga nito, yung implementation,
was
di
not
ganun
clear.
kaayos.
Was not clear. The second option stated in the said resolution was they can wait for the BCM to be repaired and then personally feed the ballot themselves. So,
Many complaints kasi reached us basically saying that they weren't told that they had the option of waiting. They were forced to make a waiver, or there were no waiver forms at all, so they wrote something that they weren't fully aware was legal and binding.
Madam Chair, this information has reached our office, and then we cascaded the information to the different regions. It's a matter of the tackling how to get the information down the line from the regions all the way to the municipal levels. But
Why po? Is this the first time that we actually allow a waiver?
I believe so.
I think it's the first time because this is a new
Yes, ma'am.
resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, this
so
is a-
hindi pa sana yung electoral board?
Yes,
dito?
ma'am.
Parang
Yes,
ganon?
ma'am. Yes,
Is that Director Elnas, Director Cinecruz, kayo yung mga haligi ng COMELEC? Ano ba? First time yata to, di ba?
No, ma'am. Actually, meron na tayong, this is part of the contingency, 2019 and 2022. Yes, ma'am. But unfortunately, there is no form as far as the waiver is concerned. So, walang pipil upan yung botante, but,
Walang klarong form.
yes, ma'am. But,
Anong 2019 o 2022?
wala, both, ma'am, 2022 and 2019.
Kasi yung ibang botante, nagre-reklamo, no? Pinapirma daw sila ng mga papel na hindi naman nila maintindihan kung tama ba yun kasi parang sulat-sulat lang.
Yes po, ma'am, tama yan. Nasa rules na ilagay sa minutes. The voters will be informed on the situation. Then they will be given the option either to wait or to just waive the right to feed the ballot into the VCM. But all of these things will be incorporated or indicated in the minutes of voting para ma-reflect kung sino ito, ilan ito, anong oras ito nangyari. And there is that manifestation or express waiver on the part of the voter na iwanan na lang nila para yung board ang mag-batch feed as soon as maayos
Yes,
nandun
but
na yung
Director,
VCM.
that's the paperwork of the COMELEC. Pero paano naman yung botante, di ba? Wala naman siyang kumpiyansa. Pag iniwan lang niya nakakalat dyan, na kung ano pinapirma sa kanya, syempre hindi siya kontento, no? So I think it's necessary that we take some remedial measures, some solutions, solve na natin to moving forward. Should we categorize as election offenses, failing to require the voter to execute a waiver, failure to properly brief the voter, coercing or forcing the voter in some way to simply leave his filled-in ballot? Is that something that we should do? I don't know.
Actually, Madam Chair, if I may, we will readily admit that indeed there were no forms.
Nga
The
eh.
waiver. So
So
therefore-
that's step one siguro, gumawa ng form na napakasimple,
Yes,
na available. Pero ipaliwanag rin sa botante na hindi naman niya kailangan gawin yon. Pwede rin siya mag-intay.
And that can be included as one of the election offenses, Your Honor. Later on. we
Later on,
can-
pwede rin siyang i-include as a minor election offense.
Yes, Your Honor. That's
Including the election officer, clearly.
right. Or the electoral board member.
Or the board
Yes, Your
member.
Honor.
Sure. Were there incidents of actual coercion and forcing? Because there were rumors of such, but I never verified.
We have no formal complaints on record, Your Honor, as far as coercion in the precinct level are concerned. Simply because the electoral board members cannot just coerce. They will be reported by the observers of the PPCRB, of NAMFREL, or even by the watchers, and their names will be included in the minutes of
Kasi sa
voting.
online at saka sa radyo, may narinig akong may ganon. Pero wala naman talagang nag-blotter or nagkaso. Meron ba kayong alam?
Meron din kasi kaming call center na sinet up dun sa UST Quadricentennial Pavilion. So, we verified on this particular situation. But it turned out, according naman dun sa aming watcher doon, pinapakiusapan, hindi naman talaga pinipilit. Pinapakiusapan sila, sinasabi sa kanila yung baka mag-aantay kayo ng matagal, baka hindi agad ito ma-repair o mapalitan. So siguro dahil sa mahaba na rin silang pumila,
Opo.
tapos pagdating doon sa kanilang pagsubo ng balota sa BCM nagkaroon ng pagpalya. So siyempre, yung mga emotions na ganon will turn out na hindi nagkaroon ng pagkakaintindihan. But I always presume na yung ating electoral board members were properly trained and also be able to handle those kind of situations kasi mga
Okay.
teachers sila eh.
Oo.
So I presume na siguro baka yung sa kainitan ng pangyayari,
Opo.
meron pwedeng mangyari na ganyan
Dahil
na
naririnig ko kasi sa probinsya, di ba?
Opo.
Pag nagpalya yung VCM, talagang dumadami yung tao, di ba? Nag-iintayan doon. Tapos siksikan, tapos hindi malaman kung anong gagawin. Siyempre, yung electoral board, sasabihin sa kanila, pumirma na lang kayo, iwanan na lang ninyo kasi talagang tambak na yung tao, napupuno yung lugar. And many places, masikip talaga to begin with. And given the COVID protocols, you really want them to leave the premises as quickly as possible so the next batch can come in. So, eto siguro ang kailangan i-address natin, mas klaro, na may option at kung saan mag-iintay. Kasi kung mag-iintay rin lang doon, talagang nagkakaipitan na sila. Yes, Mr. Averia, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning to the commissioners. We confirmed the observations, but we don't have any observation on the coercion. Yung nagsisiksikan when the time of VCM actually did not happen only in the provinces. I myself, I observed it in Pasay City West High School, because that's where I voted. Early in the morning, mga 7 in the morning, nasira yung isang VCM, nagkumpulan na yung mga voters, So nagkakainitan. I think based on our observation, it goes into the electoral board training on how to handle situations like those. There are even reports, for example, at the end of the day, na sinabi pinalitan yung SD card. Hindi na explain ng electoral board na yung gagamitin niya ay yung dongle for transmission. So may mga nagre-reklamo, pinalitan daw yung SD card. So again, it goes into that we should improve the training of our electoral board members so moving forward, no?
De, siguro, yung DICT, kailangan rin tumulong na palaganap yung mga balitang ganyan na yung SD card, pwedeng paltan, all these things that can happen. Siguro magpatulong na yung COMELEC na yung website ninyo na now you see it, now you don't, ipirmi na natin. Kasi problema rin yung information natataranta yung publiko pag nakikita yung mga SD card, yung mga BCM, nagkakagulo, syempre, nininervous na lahat.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Director Elna.
By the way, ma'am, no, gusto ko lang pasalamatan din yung in behalf sa COMELEC, ang DICT and DOST. They were able to field 85 they were able to field 85 technical hubs, provincial hubs. The purpose of which is to address problems on SD cards. Kasi dalawa ito, ma'am, defective
Yung
BCM.
BCM nakita ko sa lahat ng region saka province, pero yung technical hubs para sa SD, hirap kami.
Mayroon kami dyan, ma'am. It's situated at the Office of the Provincial Election Supervisor.
Wala.
It's
Hindi SD card, wala silang capacity. Ang capacity lang nila BCM Yun ang balita ko sa iba't ibang probinsya.
Hindi po, ma'am. Yung DOST at saka hindi COMELEC ang nang maman dito, instead DOST and
Perhaps it's a lack of information kasi hindi nga COMELEC.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, we invited also watchers to observe the process of replacing the defective SD card from the precincts. Dinadala nila sa Office of the Provincial Election Supervisor para maghintay ng instructions from the Santa Rosa warehouse.
Right.
Paano palitan itong mga SD cards na
Yes,
ito.
but I recall that a lot of provincial election officers, for example, were very, very nervous of the SD cards malfunctioning because they had simply no way to replace or repair them except to send them to Santa Rosa. Parang miski yung election officer, hindi yata aware na merong technical hubs na pwede sa SD card. Ang alam lang nila yung VCM.
That's in 2019 po na dinadala dito. Now, ma'am,
Pero I think
decentralized.
that may be so, but I believe there's a lack of information kasi mismo yung mga COMELEC sa probinsya, hindi nila alam na pwede pala Parating sinasabi. At saka, actually, nakakatuwa yung mga COMELEC. Nagsisirani ko sila ng sarili nila ng BCM Pero yung SD cards, nervous na nervous sila doon.
That's the precise reason why we established provincial technical hubs to address this, ma'am.
Yes, that's
kung
right.
sino man
All
yung-
I'm saying is that not everyone was aware that they existed. Even election officers were either ignorant or hesitant to access them.
We will include that, ma'am, in our assessment and evaluation, ma'am. At saka titingnan
Bago kasi,
namin
di
kung-
ba? Wala naman yan noong 2019.
Yes
Puro
po.
Santa Rosa.
Mayroon
naman
yan, ma'am,
kasi.
pero dito lang sa Santa Rosa talagang
kaya
kailangan.
nga. Okay, so we need to require a form for these waivers. We should print them and then find other ways to sanction. And most of all, as Mr. Averia said, we really need to train everyone very well. And finally, we need to communicate both to the public as well as to the different provinces and the COMELEC offices, hindi po ba? So I think we move on to another report, and that is that the voter receipts did not match the actual votes cast. I think this caused great hysteria among the OFW, for example. I received so many reports of this. How many reports actually reached the COMELEC?
Madam Chair, there was only one report. It was in Ilocos. I believe that happened. It was reported in one precinct by,
Quite a few, as a matter of fact, from the OFW.
yes, Madam Chair, but we received only one report,
Really?
allegedly from a municipality in Ilocos. And we re-verify and we counter-check, but it's actually a fake news,
Oh.
actually. It was even investigated by one of the local candidates there.
I see.
I think it's in Nervacan, Ilocos.
Bacara. Narvacan, Ilocos Sur.
Narvacan, yeah,
Okay.
Ilocos. And the voter was saying that he voted for this candidate, and
then-
allegedly the receipt as produced by the machine does not tally with what he voted in the ballot. So, but
I believe there were other incidents reported, Commissioner George, in the OFW. For example,
Yes.
in a previous hearing, somebody told us from the DFA that said report was in fact included in the minutes of Singapore, for example, and other places where they were not contained in the report but had been alleged.
yes, Madam Chair, we can ask our Director for Overseas Voting, Director Bea Losada, so that
Parang
she
may
can
binanggit
confirm.
na ganun noon. And some were actually recorded. Yung iba naman, parang nagkamali lang or they did not record it anymore. Yes, please.
With the indulgence of the Honorable Chairman and Commissioners, Your Honor, with respect to reports of the VVPAT or the voter receipt not matching the ballots, when we asked the various foreign service posts about said reports, it's either the overseas voters themselves would not formalize the protest, so in which case hindi na po siya, wala na pong documentation, because when the SBI would clarify the matter with
Yeah, I'm
the
sorry, I
voter-
think I recall that that wasn't the explanation. Perhaps that's the explanation in certain cases, but the case that was brought to us in the hearing involved a Singapore vote.
Yes.
At may sinasabi yung DFA na dikit-dikit yung balota or something, yung lumabas, yung nauna, dumikit dun sa papel niya or something to that effect. At yung nakuha niyang resibo, yung nakaraan, something to that effect. Tama po ba yun?
so the
I don't think it was an issue of the failure of the voter to report or record such, but rather there was something to do mechanically.
It was, I believe that the explanation of the ambassador to Singapore was that when the ballot was distributed to a voter, they inadvertently gave two ballots na magkadikit.
That's correct. That's the
Yes.
incident I referred to.
And then the voter, instead of returning the other one, he or she filled out both ballots and returned it. So the second ballot that was filled out was not marked as spoiled right away by the
Yes, we're talking
SBI.
about the same incident. Did you have other reports aside from that, which was already taken up in the previous hearing in any case?
Yes. Aside from that, Your Honor, in other posts, like in Hong Kong, where there were incidents reported about the ballots not matching the voter receipt, when we asked the SBIs at post about it, it's either that the voter themselves do not quite recall if they shaded it fully, in which case then it would not be read because of the 25% shading
I'm
threshold.
sorry, I'm not understanding. We are now blaming the voter
No.
for the receipt?
When the SBIs clarified with the voter about whether or not it was reflected, the voters themselves were unsure. Hence, they did not formalize the complaint anymore. So there were
So, in
incidents like
short, how many reported incidents of mismatch between receipts and actual votes
We
did
have
you
not-
receive, whether DFA or COMELEC?
we have not yet received the totality of the daily reports from the post, Your Honor, as they are still in transit to the Philippines.
But that's an admission that there are in fact reports.
There
It's
are,
not
in
true,
fact, reports.
as you previously stated, that the voters were no longer interested or failed to report.
It's true that there were reports of mismatch, but there were also instances wherein they
Okay.
backed out of reporting.
Sure. What's the protocol for the Electoral Board in the event that there are these reported incidents? What's the Electoral Board supposed to do? Pag sinabi na mismatch yung resibo,
They will have to record that to the
di ba they have to
minutes.
record it in the minutes?
Yes,
Oo.
Madam Chair.
As they did in several embassies, di ba? Tama? So thank you, Director Losada. Oo. Yeah. So, wait, Director Losada, don't go away. Hihingi na lang kami ng kopya pag nabuo yung mga report na galing sa iba't ibang bansa or even locally. I'm sure there are some complaints not only from Narvacan, Ilocos Sur,
Yes, Your Honor, we will compile it from all of the posts.
Overseas voting kasi yun ang hawak nyo, no?
Opo,
Pero
opo.
yung domestic, baka meron din para ipagkaisa natin. What's the reason such would happen? Binanggit na natin yung dumikit o dalawa yung balota na nakuha. What else could happen? Why is that occurring?
For overseas, Your Honors.
Well, for this mismatch of the receipt.
We are not yet able to verify at this point, Your Honor, but as per the reports of the SBIs at the overseas voting posts, when they conduct an interview with the voter, minsan po hindi nagkakaintindihan sa instruction.
Hindi na?
Kakaintindihan po. So, hindi po nila imbes na i-fully shade, partial shade, so minsan po undervote po yung lumalabas dahil hindi po nila kinompleto, let's say yung sa senatorial slate, or yun yung most most
but
frequently
I think the
answered.
OFW are very, very knowledgeable.
In any case, Your Honors, we will compile as requested po by this honorable committee all such incidents as noted po in the minutes of voting of the post.
Okay, if you could just give us a copy for overseas voting and for the local, and we try to understand why this sort of thing occurs. Is there a necessity for an amendment of the law short of a full hybrid system allowing for automatic manual recount kapag may mismatch? Are there any other solutions that we can propose? If the mismatches reach a certain level, dapat may automatic manual recount? Tama ba yun? Or are we jumping the gun and there aren't that many incidents anyway?
Tama po kayo, ma'am. Wala naman pong talagang credible incident na verified. Number one. Number two, it will really unduly delay based on my experience as a former practitioner. It will really unduly delay kasi po ang gagawin ng lahat ng mga kandidato ay magko-complain lang na nag-mismatch.
Katakot na reklamo na lang yan ng
Hindi na po
mismatch.
tayo makakatapos sa pagbilang sa gabi. And so, the only solution perhaps is to file an election protest. Let's recount the ballots and maybe tama po kayo, hahaba yung proseso. But then,
There's that. There's also the proposal pending in the Senate for a hybrid system where you have an automatically manual count at the precinct level. That's the other way, I suppose. Pero matagal din yun, but not as long as what you are projecting.
that's right, Madam Chair.
Sige. Okay. Perhaps you can advise us, because there are perennially complaints that the receipts don't match. Although, as you said, Director Sonia, minsan, pag pinaliwanag, hindi naman pala nagkamali. Okay. Perhaps I can derive from you any suggestions on the pending hybrid, because that's the more practical solution than the automatic manual recount. Kasi abutin nga tayo ng siyam-siyam dun. Maybe COMELEC Legal could comment on the hybrid so we see, given the last experience, how it would apply and if it would actually help or simply delay the process. Sige po. Next is the absence of observers in data centers, regional and provincial hubs, and the National Tech Support Center, CMAC, on election day. Bakit sabi wala ng observer? Tama ba ito? COMELEC did not heed the call for placing observers in data centers, regional and provincial hubs. So there were blind spots once again in transparency, is that correct? Yes, Commissioner Bulay, are you going to respond?
Yes, Madam Chair. I believe we have addressed that problem by a commission resolution asking the parties, coalitions and all, to provide watchers, maximum of 2. In fact, there's 3 regions, I believe, that complied with it, but some did not. So I think, but we have the citizens' arm there. We also had a walkthrough, and it was live streamed. So I think COMELEC complied with that mandate,
Yes,
Madam.
I think we complied substantially, but perhaps there's room for improvement because it appears that since it was not mandatory for COMELEC to allow observers, the constant complaint is that the IRR was not yet promulgated, so the guidelines could not be imposed, and then the law did not designate a particular COMELEC officer to submit for approval on bank the rules for observers and watchers on or before a specific date, the usual rigmarole of this sort of thing. So, is there something we can do about that para mas klaro, mas mabilis? Kasi laging problema yan, di ba? Nagumpisa tayo dyan, di ba, sa ballot printing. Tapos sa configuration ng SD cards, hindi pinapapasok sa aquarium. Di ba yun ang issue natin, Hubert? Tapos si Alex Ramos, di ba, pinalayas pa yung tropa niya. So, I mean to say, it started like that eh. Tapos tuloy-tuloy eh, di ba? Parating reason, may COVID, yung IRR wala pa, hindi naman mandatory sa COMELEC. Ano po ang tingin ninyo para wala na tayong reklamong ganyan?
Madam Chair, with your kind permission, if we will still be there in the commission, ang isang solution po is the codification of solution that will be applicable not only for this election but in the future. Like for example, what are the places where there will be watchers and observers? What are the qualifications for the watchers and observers from the data centers to the technical hubs to the repair hubs? So everything will be transparent. So
Hindi, kasi ang gulo eh, mag-a-apply ka dun sa NPO, tapos panibagong accreditation na naman sa regional and provincial hub, tapos panibago na naman sa poll watcher. Ang gulo, ang dami-daming accreditation, katakot-takot eh. That's hassle for you, hassle for the parties also. That's hassle for everyone.
That's right, Your Honor. That's why we will have to pass now the guidelines that will be applicable not only at the present but likewise for the future. And if there are changes, yung change lang po minor na lang, and we will not pass. Kasi po, ang hirap din mag-track ng ganun kahit sa isang practitioner, Madam Chair. You have COMELEC Resolution 10730. Before, it was COMELEC Resolution involving the same subject matter.
That's correct, yes. Actually, I've embarked on a rather ambitious project, and that's the new Omnibus Election Code of 2022. Kasi yung dati, yung 1981, ang tapang ko, may draft na po ako. Kaya lang medyo chop suey pa, pero bahala na, file na. Tagal ng COMELEC eh.
Madam Chair, can I?
Sorry, Commissioner Bulay, please.
No, yeah, I'm so happy to hear that. Maybe,
Ang daya niyo, trabaho niyo na.
maybe Your Honor
Effort na effort yan.
would like to include also the maximization of the party list seats. Yes,
Right.
because we start because of petitions that came to our office suggesting computations for the third round of seats, which unfortunately is not provided in Republic Act 7941 nor in the Constitution. So basically what
Or any jurisprudence so far.
Correct, Your Honor. But so far, with all respect and reverence, what was promulgated by the Supreme Court in Banat versus COMELEC has been applied in 2010, 2013, 2016, and 2019, and also 2022.
22. That's right.
So basically, though it's not a popular opinion, but I join the outgoing president in saying that the party list law needs to be improved. I hope, Madam Chair, as the chairman of the Electoral Reforms Committee and people's participation would spearhead the law.
The committee secretary will bear me out. I actually filed a committee report amending the party list law to that effect with similar sense that it causes more confusion and upset than clarity. So, meron kaming committee report, and if I could, the committee secretary, if you could provide it to the COMELEC, I'm sure you can improve on it. It's not brilliant, but it was the best compromise we could come to.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Is there room for criminalizing willful refusal of any COMELEC official to admit observers who are, who are compliant with the guidelines? Ayan, oh, sumasang-ayon ng NAMFREL, oh. Maiinit ang ulo ng mga yan, nung umpisa pa, Iki-criminalize na ba natin yung pagbabawal ng COMELEC?
Baka pwedeng administrative lang po muna, Madam Chair.
Ikaw talaga, it's just a slap on the wrist. High blood na kasi mga tao dito. Okay. All right. Yes, Mr. Averia.
Yeah, that's part of our observation report. Some of the electoral boards failed to recognize the accredited citizens' arms. Also, some electoral boards refused to release a copy of the ERs to some watchers.
Yes, have you put these observations and complaints in on paper?
Our initial assessment of the elections, I think we emailed it to the Secretariat.
Yes, because
Madam.
I recall
And then
reading something to that effect
Yes,
already.
But under our terms of accreditation by the COMELEC, we are required to file a full report by June 8 or June 9. So we're putting together the reports for the COMELEC. No?
Okay.
Although that report will not yet be complete because we are also tasked with the random manual audit, which will end on June 21 yet. No?
I see.
So it's going to be a preliminary report to the COMELEC.
Okay. But the preliminary report as well, the preliminary to the preliminary, the one that you submitted to the committee, indicates that you really had trouble with accreditation from day one to actual count.
We received our accreditation February 2, no? So and we filed the accreditation petition, I think in October,
Oo.
no?
Ang tagal nga di ba?
Yeah. So well.
Pero
we're-
of course the excuse was COVID, isn't it?
yes.
At least at the very beginning.
Well, we're hoping that the process could improve. No, so we're looking forward to more improved process.
But
when filing for
certainly a
accreditation.
more streamlined process is in order.
Yes.
Kasi hindi naman pwede hingi ng accreditation. As we said earlier, it makes life difficult for all parties. Hindi lang naman yung poll watcher, kundi lahat talaga including COMELEC. Okay, I think in Metro Manila and in the Metro, Cebu and Davao areas, there was a great deal of unhappiness about overcrowding in polling places, 4 to 5 hour waits and so on. What happened? As you said earlier, we had a record turnout. So everybody wanted to vote. We had a great number of first-time voters. Are there any solutions to this? Given that there are COVID protocols that were supposed to be in place, what can we do? Walang social distancing. Obvious na obvious. Nung May 9, talagang dikit-dikit na yung mga tao, pila-pila.
Talaga pong na-overwhelm kasi, Madam Chair. Try to imagine, Madam Chair, in one school, 5 o'clock pa lang, 6 o'clock ang opening, 3 kanto na po yung haba ng pila ng mga botante natin. And so, but then, we are lucky enough that we have our emergency accessible polling place, and we have our IPP, isolation polling precinct. Madami naman pong gumamit din, in all fairness, dito sa
Oo.
mga precincts na to.
Kaya lang,
Especially yung...
sobrang dami talaga ng tao at saka sobrang liit ng lugar. Ganun lang kasimple yun, di ba?
That's right, Madam Chair.
So, should we consider, as it was discussed in the past, the feasibility of holding voting in urban centers, in shopping centers, similar establishment? Is that a possibility? I mean, assuming that we can regulate and impose the security measures required?
Madam Chair, number one is early voting for senior citizen and PWDs.
Yes, that's another measure pending this committee. We've reported it out. However, it has not been passed. Early voting for elderly, PWD, pregnant, etc. And even IPs in remote areas, diba? Yung early voting to be expanded and actually rationalized. Kasi once again, ibang batas rin ang nagsasaad nun eh. Okay. So itong shopping centers and similar establishments, Parang people are saying that perhaps these are bigger, they have more space. Pwede ba yun? Is there a limitation on location of precincts? Do they have to be public spaces?
No, ma'am. We can use private places, but the most important thing to consider is the accessibility of that voting center.
That's precisely what they're saying, that in very many cases, the shopping centers, for example, and similar establishments are far more accessible than some of the school buildings that you chose.
Yes, ma'am. But if you are going to use a lot of shopping centers, you will have a lot of voters who are living outside or residing far away from the voting from the malls. So they will have to take a ride. Yung centralization, yung central yung
Yeah, we're not
location.
saying that we're going to wind down all the precincts. We're just saying dadagdagan.
Yes, ma'am. I think really the key is to
Kasi,
have more voting centers.
No, because shopping
spread.
centers, for example, are planned so that they have intermodal transport. So it's much easier to get to them than a far-flung precinct in a school building that no one's quite sure it's located in which barangay, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. But then we have to also consider to factor in yung accessibility ng botante papuntang voting center sa malls. If that voter is
Hindi,
residing
malalapit
far away.
lang sa mall.
Yes, ma'am. Ganun lang, ma'am. Mas malalapit
Kasi
sa
nga,
Manila.
mas kompleto yung transport dun sa mall. Yun ang suggestion sa Metro Manila. Kasi sa Quezon City, yung pilahan grabe.
Yes, ma'am. Manila, dikit-dikit ang barangay. Tapos one voting center will cater to several barangays na kagad.
Okay.
Siguro nga, Madam
Any
Chair, yung
suggestions there?
biometrics technology natin na naudlot. Kasi po, if, for example, we will be using biometrics technology, kung nakaboto na po yung botante, you have the right, you can choose whether to vote in your particular precinct or to vote in the mall, and then pag nakaboto ka na sa mall using biometrics, and then nakaboto ka na, mamomonitor na doon sa presinto na hindi ka na pwedeng bumoto kasi you already casted your vote in the mall.
Pero
at least
nakaka-nervous yata yung ganon. Sigurado magdoble-doble yan.
we already adopted sa Madam Chair sa ating overseas voting yung vote anywhere policy
the vote
natin.
anywhere policy,
And
yeah.
naging successful tayo po dahil umabot ng kahit paano 39%
Yeah,
yung ating voters
considering how
turnout.
many were repatriated and then deployed again and so on and so forth. Oo, tama. Pero parang mas mataas ang tiwala natin sa abroad kaysa dito. Ewan ko ba? Okay. So, another issue that was raised was the lack of transparency in transmission. Sabi nila, it was fast, it was free from glitches unlike previous elections like 2019, 2016. What did COMELEC do differently this time, enabling, again, this very quick transmission? I
Your-
mean, we have, of course,
Your
the
Honor.
issue of speed versus credence, no? Yes, please.
Your Honor.
Director Elnas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yung success natin in the fast transmission of results, hindi natin yan nakuha, Your Honor, isang gabi. Mahabang proseso yan, maraming testing ang dinaanan ng COMELEC in order to attain fast transmission of results. As early as December, we started already the transmission readiness test. Ito po yung testing natin ng mga VCMs and CCS, kung gagana ba itong mga VCM and CCS paggamitan ng dongle, paggamitan ng globe, smart, sun, etc.
So, ang sinasabi mo, kahit pa paano, gumagaling na rin tayo.
Yes po, ma'am.
At saka medyo maayos na rin yung mga Wi-Fi kahit paano.
Yes, ma'am. Not only
Saka
that,
yung telcos natin, nandito yata Smartmatic and Globe, kahit pa paano nag-improve, ano?
yes, ma'am. Not only that, after that transmission readiness test, we conducted field test. Selected areas, again, tinitesting natin yung connectivity, yung strength, at saka yung capability ng BCM na mag-transmit ng data from
Okay.
the BCM to the CCS hanggang sa national board. Also, we conducted mock elections using itong mga transmission media na ito.
Yes, but this is in the usual order of business. We're talking strictly about transmission, electronic transmission. Perhaps the CICC, the ICT, and our IT consultants, what can you say about what some have called the inordinate speed of transmission? Is it in fact inordinate and inexplicable, or tama lang? Yes, Attorney Guevara, please.
Yes,
Or anyone involved in the IT sector. Director Elnas, yung mga IT muna pagbigyan natin. Sila yung makaka-explain nito eh. Bakit nga daw ang bilis? Totoo ba? Hindi. Yun.
Maybe, Madam Chair, we can defer first to
Okay,
our...
Yusek Castro muna daw. Ladies first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, the DICT was involved. Sorry.
No, I just speak up, that's all.
Yes. The DICT was involved with the COMELEC through the CAC, the COMELEC Advisory Committee, and then before the elections, we have been meeting, planning out to conduct some stress tests, especially simulating, for example, for the transmission of the results. Because I believe in the 2019 elections, that was the problem, wherein when the election returns came in at the same time, and then then the system was down for several hours. So with the COMELEC Advisory Committee, meeting with the COMELEC also, we planned these activities in order to avoid that same predicament from happening. So that's one of the factors. Plus, of course, the Wi-Fi and then the transmission has been improved a lot, and some of the items, like for example in areas that there were no connectivity, I believe the COMELEC deployed some connectivity through VGANs, so that will be transmitted immediately, unlike what happened before in the past elections. I guess the perception is that because they were expecting maybe the same kind of performance which was happened in the 2019, when then there were some really delay in the transmission. So this time,
Right,
I think we were able to prepare. on
Yes,
it.
we've experienced 6-hour glitches, 7-hour glitches in the past, right? I suppose it's no secret that former officers of the DICT cast doubt on the speed and the 47% multiplier repeatedly over social media as well as traditional media. Do we have any response to those queries?
Well, that's in terms of the speed for the telcos. But for the DICT also, we were also conducting VAPT tests in terms of, so that there are no bugs in the systems that
Right.
are in COMELEC.
So like Director Elna said, you tested and retested this system unlike in the past, so
Yes,
that
sir.
these allegations over the media are misplaced. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's true. We also prepared some cybersecurity measures in order to ensure that all the websites and the servers are functioning well. In fact, the DICT was able to block some attempts in that. And into some matters, there's this, when those instances are happening, there's some denial of service, but this didn't happen in these elections, ma'am.
I see. Perhaps you can give us a quick memo regarding the cybersecurity measures that were finally put in place, because I remember in previous hearings, the other senators were very doubtful about the cybersecurity of our electoral process from end to end. So siguro maganda kung malaman kung ano ang nagawa natin, ano pang magagawa in the future. I think Attorney Guevara, Attorney Lim, Attorney Uy, paano natin sasagutin na bakit daw ang bilis at ano ba yung mga paulit-ulit na 47%, yung iba pang hinala na masyado raw mabilis. Tama ba yun? Yes, Attorney Lim, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the part of Smartmatic, we felt that the improvements in the software of the VCM, as well as in terms of the data package handling, also increased the transmission rate. Second, also, the improved software for the transmission router, which was subject of the source code review, also made the transmission more efficient. And of course, the ever-improving telecom infrastructure in the Philippines by the telecom providers, by the ICT, this also improved. Second, with respect to the 47% allegation, although commonly used, the law of large numbers is that it provides that if you get a sample from at random and it's a sample that comes from varied, that sample becomes closer to what is the actual situation reality. When the transmission started coming in, it was coming from everywhere, Your Honor. Everywhere, at all areas in the Philippines. It was so random that the results coming in were now reflecting what was the actual reality of the results of the elections, Your Honor. But if you look at it on a per province basis or a per city or municipality basis, you can see that there's no 47% trend. 47, if you aggregate entire thing, then that's when you fall into the law of large numbers, Your Honor.
Is there anyone who'd like to add anything to that allegation, please, and the explanation of Attorney Lim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, one of the main difference between the previous elections and this election is that the source code reviewers were allowed this time to do a source code review of the transmission server, the transmission system. No? So by allowing that review, the source code reviewers were able to clarify a lot of issues that has been bugging them for so many elections in the past. And we were also able to provide suggestions on how to improve on the transmission, given that we now could see how the transmission server actually operated. So with that, I'd really like to commend the COMELEC for being able to provide that access this time to the source code reviewers. So I think that is a great improvement from all previous elections. So that with respect to the law of large numbers, I'm not a mathematician, so I wouldn't know how to explain that. But I think Commissioner Botlim was able to explain it already. Hubert.
Yes, Hubert, anything else you'd like to add to the speed versus credence theory?
Well, first of all, magandang umaga po. I'd like, again, as mentioned by Ivan, Attorney Ivan, I'd like to commend the COMELEC for the speed and even the credence of the elections. For the first time, we've in a hearing like this, or in a Senate hearing like this, I am not going to raise any issue on the transmission. Okay, I've raised it many times in numerous technical working groups, numerous Senate hearings or congressional inquiries, but this time around I'm not going to raise it anymore because I'm quite happy with what happened in the last elections, and like again to take my hat off to the COMELEC. Of course, as I mentioned to Commissioner Casquero during the canvassing, there are certain things that we need to still improve on, and primarily to address the issue of transparency. While the previous elections, we could safely say that there were a lot of reforms that were instituted based on what we have recommended. There are certainly still some items that we need to further keenly look at and to address the issue on transparency. And one of which I think is the issue on ensuring that the election details should be posted on the public website. This would, even the election details are actually source documents that anyone can take a look at even before the transmission. So if you can just post the ERs on the public website or COMELEC website, then it will, in a sense, level the playing field. Why? Primarily because for you to be able to get an ER on election day, based on my computation, we'd have to spend 1,000 pesos per watcher.
Yeah.
That will include the lunch, breakfast, dinner, transportation, including load. But if you
Yeah.
post it on the website, then I guess that will level the playing field. Those who doesn't have the budget will be able just to open the website and make their own tabulation.
Yes, Hubert. I was actually going to comment that that would be the remedial measure in this case. And it would help, as you said, with the perennial problem of providing copies of the of the ERs and the usual issue of delay. Perhaps, once again, the solution lies with the COMELEC website to post the source documents or the ERs on the website so that they're generated before transmission. People can go right back to them and counter-check as they wish so that they're readily available, and this reduces doubts on the accuracy of the transmission, no matter how fast or how slow, or in globs of 47% in big numbers or in separate batches. So that was the suggestion, sana, as a remedial measure. Commissioner Garcia.
Madam Chair, just for the record, so that this will be recorded in the annal of the history of this committee. As far as the transmission of result is concerned, and at the same time comparing the election returns as based on the findings of the PPCRB, we were able to determine 99.94% as far as the PPCRB is concerned. The accuracy of the transmission as well as comparing it with the physical copy of the election returns. For our initial findings in the random manual audit, for President it's 99.97%. For Vice President it's 99.94%. From President down to the last council it's 99.94%. So that is how accurate the transmission of the results versus the physical copy of the election returns is.
Yes, we're aware of that, Commissioner Garcia, but for the offices contested that you mentioned, the majorities were so overwhelming. In certain local contests, kung saan manipis na manipis talaga yung agwat, maraming nagtanong. At maganda siguro, i-post na lang yung source documents para lahat makakita at bilangin nila ng sarili nila para panatag ang kalooban ng lahat ng kandidato at ng botante.
It's posted already. In fact, I already Bibled it to Attorney Hubert Guevara before.
Parang kulang-kulang, hindi siya kompleto. But in fact, they're generated before transmission, so we could really upload them very, very quickly para wala nang ganon. Okay, I think we get to the point of canvassing and the chain of custody and the handling of the COCs. Why were there so many missing contents, delayed delivery, and so on? They were not in the ballot boxes delivered to Congress. As I recall, Surigao del Sur, Pampanga, Sultan Kudarat, Mandaluyong, ang lapit nga, Manila, ang lapit nga, Cagayan de Oro, Sulu. So the chain of custody was what worried all of us in the Hall of Congress in the 2 days of canvassing, because it affected naturally the credibility, authenticity, and confidence in the results. May we know what actually happened? Because in many cases, the provincial election supervisor and the city election officer were not able to explain what happened adequately.
When this matter was presented to our attention, we were busy canvassing for the party list representatives at the PICC. But nonetheless, we had a team represented by Dida, Helen Aguila Flores, Director Lusada, Attorney Junanga, and ITD Philemon Enrile III at the NBOC in Congress, and they were able to address this problem by requiring the provincial election supervisor concerned to send via Waiver a scanned copy of the COC and authenticated by this provincial election supervisor. When this was presented to me, I immediately sent a memorandum to all the 7 provincial election supervisors to explain within 48 hours why no disciplinary action will be meted against them. And I responded, their explanation was that lack of sleep, the physical exhaustion, and the mix-up of all these COCs with the voluminous documents that were being prepared by these PEEs to the Provincial Board of Canvassers, to the NBOC at the PICC, and then at the NBOC in Congress.
Yes, because if you recall, Chairman, only 157 out of 173 COCs were present in Congress when we started canvassing. And considering that the elections took place more than 2 weeks before that, why were they not present? That's a heck of a long time, and that bothers everyone with the chain of custody. Viber is not the safest or most secure mode of transmission po.
But the actual certificate of canvass were sent and presented to the NBOC in Congress the following day.
Yes, that's right. But many of us still had questions. Where did the officer find the missing COC? Where had he mistakenly placed it? If the election supervisor or officer concerned can remember, was it in the same place, in the same day that he eventually found it? What's the reason? You said it was exhaustion, that he misplaced it in the first place, because it seems like very sloppy conduct, that's all. So we are in the business of solutions, and we want to know what actions, like you said earlier, they should be cited administratively for failing to comply. No, that was one suggestion from you, Mr. Chair. Is it advisable to reduce the number of copies of the COCs to lessen the possibility of error? Pero magre-reklamo naman lahat ng recipient. Malaking issue yan eh. Kasi marami kaming rine-recommend na reduction eh. Parating may malaking gulo eh. At lahat gusto may kopya eh.
Yun po, ang aling mga political parties. Because we have a minimum of 10 major political parties, and we have the dominant party and the dominant minority party. So, bali 12 po yun.
Yes. Is it possible also maybe the law should allow for one alternate member of the Board of Canvassers to take some rest in between, because it's really a long haul, to be fair. Pwede bang may alternate? Pwede bang undue delegation na ba yun pag may isa pa? Para
Madam Chair,
maghalin
so ang membro po ng Provincial Board of Canvassers, number 1, ang Provincial Election Supervisor, number 2, ang Provincial Prosecutor, at number 3, ang Treasurer po ng probinsya. So, mahirap po kasi because they always have to, tama naman po yung suggestion nyo na baka pwedeng magpahinga yung isa kasi may quorum naman. Kaya lang po, kung tutuusin po yung canvassing naman natin ngayon, ilang oras lang naman po. So perhaps really the solution is...
No, but they start really early. I mean, the canvassing is not an isolated procedure. We know isang tuhog yan eh. Talagang, ang tagal naman nila talagang nagtatrabaho.
You move from 3 o'clock, in fact, in the
Morning,
afternoon.
that's right.
Yes. So perhaps the solution really is, because, Madam Chair, matatanong din natin, bakit yung iba na ilagay sa box? Bakit yung ilan hindi na ilagay sa box? So something went wrong somewhere. So, I think po na ipaubayan lang nila sa ibang staff yung paglalagay ng COC sa loob ng ballot box, and that should not be the case. They should have verified na yung COC mismo nasa loob ng ballot box na isang dokumento lang naman po yun eh. And so human error really, and we really admit na nangyari po talaga yun, Madam Chair.
Yes, that's almost 10%, no? Because 16 were missing out of the 173. So, yun nga, maybe we should consider them shifting or doing something to avert the utter fatigue and exhaustion engendered by this exercise. The other thing is also to record by closed-circuit TV, if that was something, even if it's only makeshift. Yung Viber, it's not ideal, but at the end of the day, it's what we have. Yes, Attorney Hubert Guevara, please.
Ma'am, if you recall, we were together in the canvassing, area, and this is really the bone of contention of a lot of the senators and members of the House present during the time. No? If I may suggest, Madam Chair, and of course with all due respect, if the COMELEC may agree to this, is during the canvassing, which will may take about 2 days or 3 days, baka naman pwede even the provincial election supervisor should also be present, or not even present, but even online. So
Yes.
that at any point in time, if there's a need, they could easily be called up, and they would have a copy of the COC made available immediately to the Board of Canvassers, instead of calling them, and sometimes may be very difficult to give them a call, so that it will also hasten the process, Madam Chair.
Yes, I was going to suggest also for Section 29, the unjustified failure to deliver COCs shall be an election offense. Is that something that we should consider? And as an adjunct or alternative there to mere failure to deliver said COCs within the time prescribed may be an administrative offense, yung undue delay.
Actually, sa criminal law, infidelity in the custody of documents.
Mas
Alam
malupit
yun,
po kayo.
Piskal ho ako eh. Kaya ho, medyo ayoko na magsalita. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat. Yes, okay, so in Congress...
Madam
yes,
Chair.
sino po yan?
Nassau.
Yes, Mr. Averia.
With the use of all these technologies, I still wonder why the National Board of Canvassers still rely on the printed copies when the electronic copies can easily be transmitted. And then there's, due execution with the use of digital signatures, for instance, so that you don't have to rely on, the printed copies.
Yes, Commissioner Garcia seems to know the answer.
That was what happened in the National Board of Canvassers for the senators and the
Yes,
party list.
correct.
Exactly.
No need to compare, simply because we believe in the authenticity and due execution of what was electronically transmitted. However, the congressional rules drafted by Congress provides
For a paper copy.
a paper copy
That's
for
right.
purposes of authenticity and due execution.
And-
And perhaps maybe, ma'am,
Maybe that's an amendment to our rules that we can take into consideration.
that's right, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Averia. Yes, as I recall, in Congress, the 2 days that we were there, the presence or absence of the commissioners on the second day was questioned, right? And the mention of Attorney Guevara that the PES should at least have been on standby virtually, because in many cases they were impossible to find. And then some were also not adequately prepared to answer and gave rather unsatisfactory answers, no? So dapat yata may konting turo rin. Lack of preparation, no notice to the provincial election supervisors to make the COCs available on demand kasi walang tao doon eh. At parating pinapagalitan si Director Flores kasi siya lang natira eh nung second day. 'Di ba? Samantalang hinahanap yung mga commissioner and so do we need to amend the law to require one commissioner at least during the canvassing by Congress?
Maybe the rules, Madam Chair, of the Joint Congressional Committee should include that there should always be commissioners, and at the same time, the presence of the provincial election supervisor or whoever is the chair of the canvassing body should be present either virtually or physically, Your Honor. Would like to greatly apologize really for not being there on the second day. On the part of us, the 3 members of the commission, we were facing the hearing of the commission appointment supposedly on that day. Which
Yes, I
were-
think there was a level of confusion. They called for a hearing, and then it was canceled, and then it's been rescheduled, as I understand.
And
Is
then in
that
the
correct?
afternoon, Madam Chair, we canvassed the result from Lanao del Sur, the COC of Lanao del Sur.
With a special
yes, Madam Chair.
re-election.
For the party list, for the party list.
Yes, the special party list election. Okay. The law could also require the chairperson of each BOC to be within Metro Manila or at least virtually available, no? From the start until the COC prepared by the board concerned has been successfully canvassed. Hindi naman yung buo eh, at least hanggang matapos lang siya, di ba? So post-election, the posting of election returns for national positions should be posted by COMELEC and its public website. I think it's incomplete still, is that correct? What is the status? The last time I looked, hindi pa siya kompleto eh. Eh, nagtatanong rin ng tao doon, bakit hindi ina-upload eh, lahat ng ER natapos na, nag-canvas na yung Senate at yung Congress.
Madam Chair, per our ITD Director, 98.4% of all the election returns, you are correct. It's not 100% complete, but 98.4% were posted already in the website of the Commission on Election.
Okay. So as Attorney Guevara said, the posting will level the playing field so that those with no budget will tabulate on their own with source documents, and there's no need to spend for watchers and so on, since the COMELEC itself is uploading on its very own website. So those are the allegations, charges, complaints that we received. If there are any further questions, the COMELEC is here, and the other resource persons are here. Are there any further concerns that we need to deal with? Yes, Mr. Averia, please.
Incidents of vote buying, it appeared to have been prevalent during the last elections.
Yes, that's a very, very serious issue, and I think it was a universal problem. So is there anything that we can do about the rampant vote buying? Yes, Commissioner Bulay, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One specific complaint regarding vote buying, it's that the police and our election officers are requiring warrants to enter private residences or private resorts where such vote buying is allegedly held.
That's right.
Since they do not have the search warrant to do that issued by a competent court, they cannot go inside the private residences or resorts where such vote buying is claimed to be happening, allegedly happening. So that's one aspect that
What
should be
can we do
included.
about that, Commissioner Bulay? It's very, very difficult to get a search warrant.
Yes,
You
yes.
know better than we do.
Well, I think it should be included in the proposed law.
Yes.
Because it will definitely add jurisdiction to the lower courts during election period, which normally COMELEC has only. It
Yes.
should be included in the interagency task force that's created.
Yes,
Madam
thank you
Chair.
very much for that. We really would need that if search warrants could be expedited and given due course. In many, many cases, they were very delayed, or there were leaks already of and news of their issuance. So, problema talaga yun.
And
yes,
also,
Chair.
Madam Chair, we would like to propose stiffer penalties
Yes,
for vote buying, because this has been well entrenched in every locality in the country. And we should also work hard for the prosecution and possible conviction of these vote buyers. Kung hindi po natin ito
at dapat kasama
makasample.
lahat. Dapat pakyaw. Dapat kasama lahat. Yung
Oo.
nagbayad, yung tumanggap,
Yes.
yung natutulog sa pansita ng mga opisyal. Lahat dapat kasali, di ba? Damay-damay.
Kaya po kailangan may conviction yan para makapagbigay tayo ng leksyon sa mga
Any other suggestions
Vote buyers.
from NAMFREL? Yes, Mr. Chair, I think that's direly necessary. Paano yung mga digital transfer?
Madam
Dami
Chair.
kong narinig, from QR code to hologram to GCash to PayPal, lahat na.
Madam Chair, for the record, may I recite for the record the following data. Based on our Contra Bigay Task Force, the Facebook page received 940 messages, complaints, Likewise, in the official email, it received 171 emails. The COMELEC Law Department received 105 reports, and the COMELEC Law Department has docketed 12 verified complaints. IBPQ, Quezon City, 1 case, received AMLC.
No, Commissioner, payat yan.
Yes, Madam
Sa
Chair.
dami na nakita natin, di ba, Mr. Averian, Amfrel, I'm sure you'll stand by me na that's very much the tiny tip of giant iceberg.
There was one report from the Anti-Money Laundering Council, Your Honor, on the too large amount of money withdrawn. It's in Ilocos Sur. And so,
Hindi ako yun, ha? Kapitbahay ko yun.
maybe one thing likewise, Your Honor. There was one instance in the past when the chairman was COMELEC Chairman Sixto Brillantes. There was a resolution.
He comes from Ilocos Sur, ha?
Yes, Madam Chair. There was a resolution prohibiting the withdrawal of 500,000 pesos or more in all banks in the country. It was questioned before the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court was not able to resolve the case. So there was no withdrawal. Businessmen were complaining in order to prevent vote buying. Although in that particular year, vote buying still persisted. But we can likewise include perhaps or study
That's
in the
right.
anti-money laundering law,
That's right.
vote buying for purposes of preventing massive withdrawal or even prevention or suspension of any withdrawal from banks, Madam Chair, during the period at least 10 days before the election.
But of course, the business community that will complain that trade and commerce will come to a standstill in that case. Okay, perhaps the issue of rampant vote buying is something that will need our best counsel, and we really need to discuss that thoroughly. We have a lot of very useful suggestions this morning, and I believe these amendments will come in handy. So I will need your help from the legal department of COMELEC, from our IT who are more familiar with the process, and also from the ICT and CICC, and most of all, of course, our poll watching bodies who keep everyone straight, honest, and guarantee the conduct of free elections. Thank you very much for coming to this hearing. I apologize for the lateness of lunch and the coldness of the room. In fact, we're very, very happy and grateful that the May 9 election was uneventful, successful, and largely according to law, to the expectations of our people, and we are very, very pleased with everyone's contribution from the ICT and the OST, CICC, COMELEC, and IT. I also apologize. Sometimes the hearings in this committee have been rancorous and rather bitter, but truth to tell, I think we have a much better electoral process as a result. Congratulations to all. Thank you very much.